Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Doujinshi, and I am here once again to do something a little bit different these days. We're still going to do the review, but we're going to ask a few questions along the way. Number one, is there such a thing as too vanilla, too safe? And by God, I think I may have actually answered this question. Also, pay attention to how better the mic is instead of the last episode. I had some problems, I fixed them. Now, on to the review. We are going to be reviewing Kimi Part 1. As the part has just aired, all my videos are going to be directly sourced from the website hanime.tv. I'm not going to put a link because that is a no-no, and I really like this channel. Now, some notable plot elements you may be seeing along the way are the fact that there are two tags in particular that I would like to talk about. Vanilla and plot. Essentially, vanilla meaning exactly what you'd expect. Missionary, person being happy, no one's doing anything they don't like, and nothing's going in any hole except for the base one. That being said, there may be a few things thrown in once in a while, but nothing too unchristian. Now, along that angle, there are two characters in this series, running about 24 minutes and 44-ish seconds, 2 minutes being for the credits. The two characters are the girl, June, and the guy, Natsu. Both of them pretty vanilla stock standard. The girl, on the one hand, looking fairly similar to, that sort of dark-haired blue girl. That sort of blue, dark-haired girl you'd see in a lot of different anime. You know what I'm talking about. Tokyo Ghoul, the one about the one about the people having sex in mechs. It's a little bit weird. Now, seeing the poster for this episode, I would have assumed that it had something to do along the lines of... It kind of reminded me of Your Name a bit, which, if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend. It's a solid movie. Now, along that portion, it is done by Pink Pineapple, the Shonen Jump of hentai. Yep, we're on this section now. Now, the plot of this revolves around Natsu and June speaking about how they have one final year left of school and would very much like to make a wave, as they were, to move on throughout the series. Both the two end up seeing a fireworks festival go along, her trying to impress him as she shows up in her apartment later on in the episode, him being very dismissive about the whole thing, and her genuinely trying to impress her best friend that is now currently in their home watching a very sparkly lit up night. Now, what happens is she is, how can you say, horny. After being put in for this, they decide, hey, we're watching this so romantically. And then, as they look off into the sunset and realize that the sparkling, enormous eruption of fireworks goes off, so beautiful, so wondrous, they look at each other and think, you're beautiful. No, you're beautiful. No, you're beautiful. Let us both be beautiful together. Sex. It leads into the first quote-unquote scene in the episode, which, running at about 25-ish minutes, happens around the 8-minute point, so you may have to stick around for a little bit. And then, what happens after you've waited this long? A third of the entire thing that happens? It's pretty stock standard. Not much to talk about. It's, yeah, it has the vanilla for a reason, and it has plot. So you're not getting any other characters in this. You get two people, and you better be happy with them. That being said, the sex scene that gets brought in essentially has what I'd like to call uncreative tones. Now, what I mean by that is it suffers from a few problems. The scene itself lasting from the 8-minute point on the dot, leading to around the 15:30, 15.5-inch point. That's a half-inch. Leading to around the 15 and a half-minute point. Now, that would be cool if there were variety to it. A little bit. A little bit. I don't know, positions that open up. It's mostly the guy on his back and the girl sometimes being on hers. There's really not a lot else to it. They do suffer a lot from looping, which shows up. Looping is when when there is not enough content, so they take a big photo about, let's just say, yay big, that has the entire sex scene, looping as a GIF, or GIF, whatever you want to say. Okay. As it goes along the period, they then zoom into one part as it loops constantly as they go up and down to make sure that you can squeeze as much time as possible. Unfortunately, this happens a lot, and it tends to linger on those single images for a long period of time. And what happens is very, like I said, stock standard. There's not much to it. Ooh, it stays in that part for for a little over 7 minutes. And I gotta say, there was not a lot happening. It was... I know you go into vanilla expecting vanilla, but you don't expect to be hit with milk. Now, when something along those lines happens, and let's say we go ahead and skip 8 minutes in because they sure as hell drew out their fucking time, as they move along, they then cut about a year forward, where the girl has physically graduated from the school. She's a little bit more well-developed. She looks a little bit more adultish. The man also looking so. As she runs home from where her grades are listed. I'm an American, so I'm not even going to assume what they do is correct in Japanese culture. If they do, good for them. I couldn't tell you if it was truthful or not. Now that being said, she runs home and to find that she is either living with the guy or she just runs to his house. Either way, it's a little rude to barge in on somebody in their room. Now, after they do so, she hugs him tightly and says, I passed, it's so amazing, I can't believe I passed. And then she looks him dead in the eye and says, remember the deal we made so long ago? Almost a year now? Which, I watched the episode and I strictly don't remember seeing a deal. Yeah, no, I wasn't doing anything else. I was paying attention to the plot. Mostly because the plot was just about as white bread as the scenes. And I didn't really have a lot else to pay attention to. Now after watching these two talk, they then get directly back into the next scene, which goes on about 3 minutes after the last one, and then continues all the way out to the 23 minute, which is essentially the end, where it stops in standard. Now, I would like to say the first sex scene was overall a fluke on its part, but the second one is just as bad. It's just as bad. It's not... The thing is, there's not anything special happening in it that would warrant it being bad if you have something against certain things. If it had those things, then maybe I'd give it a different score for the reasoning. But it was just so stock standard that there was nothing really to gauge. Now, I like my vanilla, but vanilla also can be done poorly, as I personally see here. Because they kind of front-load it with the plot that's actually there to try to draw you in. That's why the plot tag is on this episode. Given the fact that it does have 7 categories, but really only 2 of them are visible. Plot and vanilla. Like, there's nothing else. If it's labeled for handwork, then there was really only like 5 seconds of it. There's not really much else. Plot and vanilla is all you're getting, and you're only getting plot for about 8 minutes, and then you go straight to vanilla. Now, I would say that that's a kind of a big thing, but not really. When the episode ends, the second sex scene really has a lot to do. There's looping issues. Not only do they loop the scenes, they loop the audio a lot. Not only do they loop the audio a lot, there's no variety in the second scene at all, just like the first. And they linger a lot on everything that's there. Yeah. And really nothing else to talk about after it gets to that point. I know this is a little bit of a boring video, but this is a little bit of a boring hentai. I mean, on the website that I've been using, hanime.tv, if you're wondering, and I'd like to say it a second time, there's just nothing to it. It's been such a long time since we've gotten a new episode for something, almost 2 weeks. Yikes. Then they bring out one, which I do plan on reviewing at some point. And this, which came out earlier today, which, overall, it's like a slap in the face with wheat bread. Not even wheat bread, stock standard bread. The kind of stuff you would get in the bargain bin, because they either bought too much of it and didn't know what to do with it, so they decided to go in. So, I guess, down to the overall reviews. And now let me get out my trusty handy-dandy notebook to see how I have so fairly reviewed it. Number 1, the characters. Overall, stock standard. The guy and the girl seem like they're gonna have a decent relationship throughout it, given the fact that they're the only 2 characters that show up in the damn thing. But then, that's it. You get the fact that they're best friends, and the girl has a crush on the guy. The guy is fairly dismissive, but he doesn't even fall into any of the tropes of a off-brand protagonist. Stealing that one from Lost Pause. Thank you very much, Noble. You have been an inspiration. And then, I'd give that a 4 out of 10. There's just such... It would be passable if they were a little bit more interesting. They have a dynamic, but they have the stock standard basic dynamic. It's like a bridge made out of tree limbs. Like, yeah, it's a bridge. And it does the work of a bridge. But would you call it a bridge? I wouldn't. Now, animation... Like I've been saying through it, they heavily rely on looping for a lot of the scenes. They linger on those scenes for a very long time. They even linger on the audio, like I said before. And they do this awful thing, I hate it so much, where they try to increase the speed of the looped images to give the illusion of heavier editing. They also speed up the audio of it as well. And that's just lazy. It's... Unfortunately, 4 out of 10. Given the fact that there was dirty scenes, that's all I can give it. The base standard. And the fact that there was different angles, there's just no dynamic movement. As you'll see in a lot of my videos, I do have a problem with lack of dynamic movement. They just go to different camera scenes, and even then, they don't go to a lot of them. And the content overall, what a lot of people are here for, everything I've been saying leads up to too vanilla. It is too vanilla. How can you be too vanilla? There is nothing out there. This is a 3 out of 10 for the content of the whole thing. I can't in good conscience give this anything above an overall time. It's a 3 out of 10. It's a 3 out of goddamn 10. Nothing special, and it's probably not going to be anything special. There was a 1, given the fact that this is the first episode to come out, but God, I hope there's a second episode that at least redeems a little bit of it, because overall, 3 out of 10. And, I mean, it's a high 3 out of 10, but alas, it's a 3. I can't in good conscience recommend this to anybody, because even if you like vanilla, there's better vanilla out there. Wagayano Liliano-san is far better, and it does vanilla perfectly. There's only 2 characters, but they make those characters out to feel like they have an interaction. But, unfortunately, I am on a time limit, and I'd like to say that this has been Dr. Doujinshi. Hey, there's better vanilla out there, and I sure as hell would very much appreciate if you got better vanilla. Until then, I'll be on the search for it. Alright, so, in my closing remarks, I'd like to say, wash your hands and be safe, because not everybody is at the moment. Make sure you're listening to good music, and if I didn't say it before, we recently hit 30 subs, and I would like to thank every single one of you for making it this far and for getting me where I am. This isn't a lot, but you guys are more than anything I could have ever imagined. Have a good day, stay safe, and goodbye.